Some places aren't hidden by geography, they're hidden by price, permission, and silence. Around the world, extreme wealth doesn't chase luxury hotels anymore. It builds locations that don't appear on maps, don't allow cameras, and don't tolerate outsiders. These are not vacations, they're infrastructure for power and privacy. Watch until the end, because one of these places reveals how money can erase visibility entirely, and why only a handful of people on Earth are allowed to know it exists. North Island, Seychelles, privacy engine disguised as conservation. What if the rarest luxury on Earth is not space, gold, or technology, but the ability to erase yourself completely? Hidden in the Indian Ocean, North Island is not marketed as a resort. It is engineered as a disappearance mechanism for people whose visibility itself has become a liability. This is where extreme wealth stops buying comfort and starts buying non-existence. The island spans 250 acres, yet allows only 11 villas to be built. That single decision destroys any traditional hospitality logic. At absolute maximum, North Island hosts 44 guests at one time. No overflow, no seasonal expansion, no exceptions. Each villa ranges from 450 to 750 square meters, deliberately spaced so no guest can see another without intent. This is not accidental design. It is enforced isolation, written directly into the land. Access control is even tighter. There are no public docks, no seaplane terminals, no scheduled boats. Entry is helicopter only from Mahe, with flight windows coordinated privately. Every arrival is known in advance, logged and isolated. This removes chance encounters entirely. If you cannot arrive quietly, you cannot arrive at all. In security terms, the island functions like a gated compound, except the gate is airspace. Then comes the rule that exposes North Island's true purpose: a strict no photo, no social media policy. This is not a suggestion, it is a condition of stay. Phones are discouraged. Content creation is quietly shut down. In a world where billionaires spend millions managing narratives, North Island offers something radically different. No narrative at all. Silence is the asset. The pricing reflects that reality. Standard stays begin at $15,000 per night, fully inclusive of food, activities, and private transfers. That alone places it among the most expensive resorts on the planet. But the real power move is the buyout. Renting the entire island can exceed $1 million per week, depending on season and security requirements. At that price, guests are not purchasing hospitality. They are purchasing control over every variable: people, schedules, staff exposure, and information flow. Even the island's conservation story reinforces this logic. Since redevelopment began in 1997, tens of millions of dollars were spent restoring native ecosystems, removing invasive species, and reintroducing rare wildlife like the Aldabra giant tortoise. On paper, this is environmental responsibility. In practice, it also limits development permanently. Fewer structures mean fewer staff, fewer outsiders, fewer risks. North Island reveals a deeper truth about modern ultra-wealth. At a certain level, luxury is no longer about what you can access, it is about what you can exclude. When exposure becomes dangerous, invisibility becomes priceless. Comment below. If you had the money, would you spend $15,000 a night to be seen, or $1 million a week to disappear? Necker Island, British Virgin Islands, Branson's luxury lab. What if the real value of a private island isn't the land, the villas, or even the ocean around it, but who controls the social gravity inside it? In 1978, Richard Branson quietly bought Necker Island in the British Virgin Islands for just $180,000. At the time, it was little more than an undeveloped tropical outcrop. What followed wasn't a real estate play. It was a long-term experiment in how wealth can manufacture influence, intimacy, and access without ever looking like power. Branson didn't rush to monetize the island. Instead, he spent the next 3 years investing approximately $10 million, transforming Necker into something deliberately different from traditional luxury resorts. The architecture blended Bali-inspired design with Caribbean openness, but the real design choice was social. Necker was built to host no more than 48 guests, spread across 24 rooms, centered around the Great House and a cluster of private villas. This cap was intentional. Too many guests dilute exclusivity. Too few limit networking value. Necker was calibrated like a private dinner party that just happened to sit in the middle of the sea. Disasters only strengthened the island's mythology. A fire in 1984 destroyed the original Great House. Hurricane Irma in 2017 tore through the island again. Each time, Branson rebuilt, but not just to restore what was lost. The reinvestment added solar panels, wind turbines, and infrastructure aimed at near carbon neutrality. On the surface, this looked like environmental responsibility. Beneath it, resilience became part of the asset. Necker wasn't just luxurious, it was self-reliant, future-proofed, and symbolically aligned with progressive values that attract global elites. Pricing reveals the real strategy. Exclusive use of the island begins at $17,500 per night, accommodating up to 40 guests, while individual room bookings, when available, can approach $30,000 per room per week. This pricing doesn't target tourists. It filters for founders, CEOs, heads of state, and deal-makers who value controlled proximity over opulence. The island becomes a social filter, ensuring everyone present operates at a similar level of influence. What truly separates Necker from other private islands is Branson himself. Unlike absentee owners, he frequently joins guests kitesurfing, hosting dinners, or casually discussing ventures. This transforms the stay into something more valuable than luxury: access. Deals don't need boardrooms here. Trust forms over sunsets, not contracts. Necker Island proves a subtle truth about ultra-wealth. At a certain level, money stops chasing privacy and starts engineering curated connection. The island isn't about escaping the world. It's about reshaping who gets to sit inside your world and who never even knows it exists. Comment below. Would you pay $30,000 a week for comfort, or for a seat inside a billionaire's inner circle? Laucala Island, Fiji, the self-contained kingdom with a private submarine. What happens when a billionaire decides that even five-star resorts leave too much to chance? On Laucala Island, luxury is not about service, it is about total replacement of the outside world. This is not a destination designed to impress guests. It is an environment designed to control supply, experience, and risk with the precision of a private state. Laucala spans 3,500 acres in Fiji's remote Lau archipelago, making it larger than many small cities. In 2003, the island was acquired for $10 million, a price that barely hinted at what was coming next. Over the following years, an additional $30 million was poured into transforming the land into a self-contained system where dependency on external logistics is treated as a vulnerability. This was not aesthetic investment, it was infrastructural. Unlike traditional luxury resorts that rely on imported food and seasonal supply chains, Laucala produces roughly 90% of its own food. Organic farms, livestock operations, and controlled fishing zones turn the island into a closed loop. This decision is expensive and inefficient by hospitality standards, but efficiency is not the goal. Control is. When global logistics break, weather disrupts shipping, or borders close, Laucala continues operating exactly as designed. That reliability is the real asset. The scale of exclusivity is equally deliberate. Only 25 villas exist across the entire island, each positioned to avoid visual overlap. Some are perched on hillsides, others extend over water, all equipped with private pools and expansive interiors. Entry pricing begins around $5,000 per night, already filtering for a narrow clientele. At the top sits the Hilltop Estate, a compound priced at $45,000 per night, fully all-inclusive. At that level, guests are not booking accommodation. They are temporarily assuming control of a system. Then comes the detail that exposes Laucala's mindset most clearly. The island owns a $1.7 million private submarine, the Deep Flight Super Falcon. This is not an excursion add-on. It is a symbol. When surface-level privacy is no longer sufficient, wealth simply moves downward. Underwater exploration becomes another controlled environment, inaccessible to cameras, crowds, or surveillance. Even arrival is engineered for discretion. Guests fly from Nadi aboard the resort's private aircraft, a King Air B200, at roughly $800 round trip. No commercial terminals, no unpredictable passengers. From the moment travel begins, variables are reduced. Laucala reveals something deeper about modern ultra-wealth. At a certain level, luxury stops responding to the world and starts replacing it. Food, transport, entertainment, even nature itself are internalized into a single supply chain. And once that happens, the question is no longer how much it costs, but how far this model can be taken before the outside world becomes optional entirely. Mustique, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, aristocratic gatekeeping as a business model. What if the most valuable thing money can buy is permission, the right to exist somewhere, without explanation, scrutiny, or performance? On Mustique, wealth doesn't shout, it filters. This island was never designed to impress outsiders, it was engineered to keep them out, turning social exclusion into its most profitable feature. Mustique spans roughly 1,400 acres, yet it operates with rules closer to a private club than a destination. There are no day passes, no casual visitors, no paparazzi tolerated. Access is deliberate friction. If you arrive here, it's because someone already decided you belong. That decision is the product being sold. The scenery is secondary. The origin story explains everything. In 1958, British aristocrat Colin Tennant purchased the island for £45,000, a modest sum that would later unlock one of the most exclusive social ecosystems on Earth. 2 years later, he gifted a 10-acre parcel to Princess Margaret. That single act rewired the island's future. Royal presence changed the island's signal overnight. Mustique was no longer just private, it was sanctioned. Development followed a strict philosophy: scarcity by design. The island is capped at roughly 120 private villas, many commissioned by owners and designed to avoid sightlines, sound, and shared spaces. There is no urban center to congregate around, no public beach culture, no reason to gather unless invited. Even the lone hotel, Cotton House, is intentionally small, acting less as accommodation and more as a gatekeeper. The pricing enforces that culture. Weekly villa rentals typically begin around $50,000, and the most desirable estates routinely exceed $100,000 per week, before staff, security, and transport. This is not a pricing mistake, it's a filter. At these numbers, curiosity disappears, only intent remains. Getting there reinforces the message. There are no direct commercial flights. Arrivals require pre-approved charter flights, helicopter transfers, or private yachts. Each step introduces delay, cost, and exposure designed to discourage anyone without a reason to be present. The island's isolation is not geographic, it's procedural. What makes Mustique uniquely powerful is that it doesn't sell luxury, it sells social clearance. You are not paying for beaches or villas. You are paying to exist inside a space where everyone else has already been vetted, where privacy is enforced culturally, not technologically, where attention is considered a breach of etiquette. This is the hidden logic of old money power. Build fewer things, allow fewer people, let silence do the work. Mustique proves that, at the highest levels of wealth, control is no longer about ownership, it's about who gets invited and who never even hears the invitation was sent. Fisher Island, Florida, an invitation-only fortress 3 miles from Miami. What if the most secure billionaire enclave in America wasn't hidden in the mountains or behind oceans, but sitting just 3 miles from Miami Beach, in plain sight? Fisher Island is not protected by distance, it's protected by permission. From the outside, it looks like a short ferry ride. From the inside, it operates like a financial and social checkpoint where wealth is verified long before privacy is granted. The island covers 216 acres, yet access is aggressively restricted. There are no public bridges, no casual visitors. Entry is possible only by private ferry, private boat, or helicopter, and even then, arrival does not equal acceptance. Fisher Island functions on invitation culture. Presence is vetted. Movement is monitored. Anonymity is enforced not through secrecy, but through layers of administrative friction designed to keep the wrong people out. Real estate is the first filter. Homes on Fisher Island rarely trade below $20 million, and premium waterfront residences can exceed $50 million depending on size and positioning. These numbers are not driven by square footage alone, they are driven by exclusion. Buying property here is less about owning a home and more about buying entry into a controlled ecosystem where neighbors are carefully curated. Then comes the second gate, the Fisher Island Club. Membership requires a $250,000 initiation fee, followed by $22,000 in annual dues. This is not optional. Without membership, ownership loses its value. The club is the island's operational core, controlling access to amenities, social life, and internal networks. At these price points, curiosity disappears. Only long-term intent remains. The amenities reveal why billionaires tolerate these barriers. Fisher Island maintains a private beach with imported white sand, a detail that sounds cosmetic until you understand the logistics. The sand is maintained to remain untouched by public tourism. The island also offers a 9-hole golf course, 18 tennis courts, luxury spa facilities, fine dining, and a marina capable of hosting yachts up to 250 feet. This allows residents to arrive and depart without ever engaging Miami's public infrastructure. What makes Fisher Island uniquely powerful is its paradox. It sits adjacent to one of the loudest, most photographed cities in the world, yet remains invisible by comparison. While Miami sells attention, Fisher Island sells absence. Celebrities, financiers, and ultra-high net worth individuals can exist here without becoming content, headlines, or targets. The island's structure transforms proximity into advantage. Residents gain immediate access to Miami's financial, cultural, and nightlife ecosystems without carrying the exposure that usually comes with them. Privacy here is not isolation. It is selective engagement. Fisher Island exposes a deeper rule of modern wealth. At the highest level, security is not about walls or guards. It is about systems that quietly ask one question at every gate: do you belong here? And if the answer isn't immediate, the system answers for you. Isla de Ferradura, Ibiza, a private island with an underground nightclub. What if the most dangerous luxury asset in Europe isn't a yacht, a jet, or a palace, but a place where nothing needs to be explained the morning after? Off the northern coast of Ibiza sits Isla de Ferradura, a 1.4-acre private island engineered not for relaxation, but for controlled excess without witnesses. This is not a retreat for recovery. It is a stage designed so that whatever happens on the island never needs to leave it. For decades, the island existed as a neglected outcrop, too close to Ibiza to feel remote, yet too isolated to develop conventionally. That changed in 2017, when the property was quietly rebuilt into one of Europe's most exclusive ultra-luxury rental estates. The renovation was not about maximizing bedrooms or tourist appeal. It was about minimizing variables. Capacity was capped at 12 guests, housed across 6 ensuite bedrooms, a number small enough to guarantee trust, intimacy, and silence. This is not where strangers meet. This is where inner circles reconvene. The true asset lies beneath the surface. Hidden inside the island is a fully equipped underground nightclub, purpose-built to operate without visibility, noise, leakage, or outside oversight. This is not a novelty feature, it is the core product. On mainland Ibiza, nightlife equals exposure. Cameras, staff, bystanders, and leaks are unavoidable. On Ferradura, celebration is sealed underground, acoustically isolated, and staffed exclusively by vetted personnel. Excess becomes contained, privacy becomes architectural. Money enforces that containment. Weekly rentals begin at $200,000, fully inclusive. That price covers not just accommodation, but total operational control. Private chefs, full hospitality staff, dedicated security, logistics, and transportation. Guests do not leave the island because they do not need to. Food, music, wellness, and entertainment are internalized into a single closed loop. At this level, the cost is not paying for luxury. It is paying to eliminate dependency on the outside world. Arrival itself is filtered. Access is only by private boat or helicopter, with yacht arrivals coordinated in advance. There are no docks for curiosity seekers, no foot traffic, no casual shoreline access. Even though the island is geographically close to Ibiza, operationally it functions like a detached jurisdiction. Proximity creates temptation, control neutralizes it. What makes Ferradura uniquely valuable is not the island, but the freedom from consequence it offers. In public spaces, wealth is performative. In hotels, it is observed. Here, wealth becomes invisible again. The island doesn't just remove paparazzi, it removes incentives for documentation entirely. Nothing to gain, too much to lose. This is why Ferradura is favored by European aristocrats, tech founders, financiers, and celebrity networks that already have everything else. When reputation becomes fragile, privacy becomes strategic. The underground nightclub is not about partying harder. It is about partying safely, within a perimeter that money alone can afford to build. Ferradura exposes a hard truth about modern ultra-wealth. At the highest level, luxury is no longer defined by what you can do, but by where consequences stop applying. And when privacy reaches that level of engineering, the line between leisure and power quietly disappears. What these places reveal is not indulgence, but strategy. First, the ultra-rich increasingly use money to remove exposure, not enhance status. Privacy is no longer a preference. It's a defensive asset built into geography, access rules, and logistics. Second, many of Asia's wealthiest families deploy capital to create self-contained ecosystems, islands, enclaves, and compounds that control food, transport, security, and information flow. This isn't luxury living, it's operational independence. Third, true influence today is protected through invisibility, not attention. The most powerful assets are the ones that leave no digital footprint, no public record, and no crowd. If this kind of deep analysis changes how you see wealth and power, support the channel by liking the video and subscribing. In part 2, we'll explore the ultra-secret transportation networks and private systems that connect these places, revealing how the world's richest move between them without ever being seen.